Ganesha, a god venerated by a billion. He is also called Vinayaga, the destroyer of obstacles. How and why was he created? Why did he fight with the great Shiva? Why does he have the head of an elephant? The creation of Ganesha is detailed in the narratives in the Puranas. The story of Ganesha begins with a meeting between the Divine Mother, Mahaparvati, Shakti, and Jaya and Vijaya, her friends. So Jaya and Vijaya tell Mahaparvati, who is the consort of Shiva, Rudrasya cha gana sarve Shivasya agnya parayana. All the ganas of Rudra carry out the orders of Shiva. Now, the word gana means multitude, and they're often characterized as supernatural beings having mysterious forces who are the attendants of Shiva. Now here, the ganas are explicitly called out as ganas of Rudra, the manifestation of Shiva as Rudra, who is responsible for the eventual dissolution of the universe. So Jaya and Vijaya feel that these ganas are not aligned in mind to Shakti, Mahaparvati. They say all these ganas are in a way our own because they're all of the primordial Prakriti, but they feel that Mahaparvati needs to create one of her own, someone who is under her control alone, just under the control of Adi Shakti. So, the goddess Parvati, the great Mahamaya, thinks that she definitely needs someone who is her helper and without the influence of Lord Shiva. So, from the dirt of her body, she creates a being. Handsome, brave, valorous, he dazzles in strength and size. Mahaparvati blesses her own creation, her boy, and tells him that he is her son. And she tells him, Mat putrastvam madiyosi na anya kaschid asti me. You are my son, you are my own, I have no one else to call my own. So she tells him that nobody should come into her abode without permission from Ganesha. So he should not let anybody enter the abode of Shakti. So this great being, the son of Shakti, stations himself at the doorway protecting his mother. As soon as she leaves, who else but the great Shiva Mahadeva arrives. Ganesha, just created, stops Shiva from entering the abode of Shakti. He says, nobody can enter without my mother's permission. Now Shiva escalates his fight with Ganesha. All this is a part of Shiva's Leela. The Purana in this verse refers to Shiva as Nana Leela Visharada, the expert of various kinds of Leela, a sporting activity of the Supreme Absolute. So he tells Ganesha, this is my own house that I'm entering. Why are you forbidding me? And who are you to forbid me? And Ganesha again stops Shiva, and noticing Shiva's anger, the Shiva Ganas step into action. All of them go to Ganesha, who stands alone in front of the gate. They say, who are you? Where do you come from? If you desire to live, go far away from here. Of course, these are the Rudra Ganas, terrifying in appearance and terrific in their prowess. They issue a threat to this boy who was just recently created by his mother. But of course, this is no ordinary boy. His mother is the great Mahamaya Shakti. So he says very calmly, who are you handsome fellows? Why do you want to oppose me? Just leave. The Ganas obviously do not want to fight a young boy, that too one who is guarding the gate of Shakti. So they go back to Shiva and tell him what happened, and he eggs them on as part of his plan. He says, you claim to be heroes. If so, you should just fight and drive this boy away. And then the Ganas go back and tell Ganesha to be ready for a fight. After a series of to and fro, Ganesha says, let's fight. And he adds that if he loses, this is his first battle, but if they lose, it's a big shame because they're supposed to be the great Rudra Ganas. So finally the battle begins, and in a terrific battle, Ganesha fights off all the Ganas single-handedly. Entire armies are sent and are defeated and dispatched back by Ganesha. And on hearing the words of the Ganas, Rudra becomes furious and goes there along with all his Ganas. Now here, Shiva in his manifestation of Rudra enters the battle. This is a very important symbolism. Ganesha now had the full potent power of the Shaktis, so he was unassailable. But finally, Mahadeva, Shiva, cuts Ganesha's head off with his trident. Now, the battle is over, but the great Shakti becomes furious. She sees her creation, her son, dead, and she decides to create a deluge to destroy the entirety of creation. So she creates millions of Shaktis and orders them to devour all the created beings, like the Rishis, the Devas, the Yakshas, everybody. The Shaktis begin to attack. This is Pralaya. The divine Shakti, responsible for creation, is now intent on dissolution. So the Rishis and Devas approach Shakti and beseech her for forgiveness. She demands that her son be brought back to life. Lord Shiva then takes the head of a single tusked elephant and fits it onto the body of Ganesha, bringing him back to life. Ma Parvati was delighted and order was restored. Ganesha, resuscitated, bows down to all the sages and celestials, stating, "Arrogance is the characteristic of man's nature, and he himself was wrong to be arrogant, both to Shiva and to the Shivaganas." Now everyone is happy, and the sages declare that Ganesha too, like them, like all, is an offspring of the Prakriti, the most important offspring. So they insist that Ganesha shall be worshipped as the first before any other celestial being is worshipped. And this is the reason why, till today, before starting any ritual, Ganesha is worshipped. Shiva blesses Ganesha and makes him the leader of his Ganas. He acquires the name Ganapati. Gana means multitude and Ganapati means leader of the multitude. This is the story of Ganesha. Of course, this interesting narrative has very, very deep symbolisms that are often missed. Shiva and Parvati symbolize the cosmic Purusha, the spirit, and Prakriti, which is the material. Shiva is the true nature of reality. Ma Parvati, Shakti, is the female aspect of this energy, the one that is responsible for all of creation. She is responsible for the creation of the universe and the force that animates it. In the earlier chapters of the Puranas, we see that Shiva, in his form as the Supreme Spirit, does not even want to engage in creation, in manifestation. He wants to remain in his state of bliss. However, Ma Parvati convinces him to engage in the process of creation, and this symbolizes the manifestation of the Brahman, the Supreme Absolute, from Avyakta, unmanifest, to manifest, the union of Shiva and Shakti. This union results in the manifestation of an universe with its infinite forms composed of a mixture of the three gunas. What are the three gunas? The three gunas are the three fundamental modes of nature, the basic components of Prakriti that causes qualities to emerge. So the three gunas are Sattva, that which is good, truth. Sat is being closest to the true nature of reality. Rajas is another guna, which is passion, and it stands for action. Tamasa guna denotes ignorance, inertia, and destruction. So creation happens due to the imbalance of these gunas. So every being is just a mixture of these three gunas in varying degrees, infused with the self, the Atma, which is the essence of the Supreme Absolute. The combination of the gunas are infinite, so beings are of all shades. So all varieties of beings are created, not just one type, because it wouldn't be a very interesting creation if all beings were just of one type. So it is within this context of creation that these narratives should be seen. The initial two offsprings of Shiva and Parvati are Lord Muruga, Kartikeya, and Ganesha. The great god Muruga is born of the third eye of Shiva. He is pure knowledge, jnana. He aids in destroying all asuric qualities in a person and helps them move towards the true nature of reality. Even as a young boy, the great Skanda defeats the Asura Taraka. The Devas flock to him for help, and everyone eulogizes the young Kumara who is responsible for destroying these asuric qualities. Kartikeya had so much knowledge that he teaches his father, the great Shiva Mahadeva, the meaning of the Pranava mantra Om. So Kartikeya, Lord Muruga, is the highest embodiment of knowledge, and he has the fire of the pure spirit in him, because he was created from the third eye of Shiva. Now, the Divine Mother Shakti, she is responsible for the creation of the universe. She is the primordial Prakriti, the building blocks of the universe, and the force that animates it. So, she creates a creation called Ganesha, purely modeled after her characteristics. So, Ganesha was a protector created out of the dirt of Shakti, which means more of the Prakriti. So, Shiva and Shakti create two cosmic forces, one with the essence of the pure spirit and one with the essence of the material. Sure enough, Vinayaga becomes the master of intellect and worldly wisdom. His consorts are Siddhi and Buddhi. Buddhi is intellect, not knowledge, but intellect. Intellect helps one navigate the material world. Siddhi means perfection, skill and accomplishment. And it is always used to denote the mastery of the material. Even the Ashta Siddhis denote an ability of an individual to master the material. And Kshema and Labha, well-being and advantage, are creations of Vinayaka. We all navigate the material world incurring karma. Even one seeking liberation needs to sustain themselves in the material world. Without sustenance, in many cases, one cannot even think of approaching liberation. We have to function day to day in order to even think about approaching liberation. So, at one level, Ganesha symbolizes the force that aids dharmic navigation of the material world. And he gives recipes on how to do that. In fact, it is Ganesha who writes the Mahabharata for Maharishi Vedavyasa, talking about how one must navigate the world keeping dharma in mind. Ganesha is the guide for how one must approach the material. And again, participating in the material world is not pessimistic. It is the dance of delight, the Leela of the Supreme Absolute. After dancing this dance of existence righteously, reveling in righteous desires, one can move towards liberation. So Ganesha again here symbolizes prosperity and an attainment of righteous desires. And which is why again most rituals for the material well-being start with the veneration of Ganesha. But this is the first level of symbolism. Let us go a little bit deeper. Ganesha's story itself symbolizes the story of the Atman, the self, caught in the grip of Maya without understanding its true nature. A boy blessed by Shakti, who has mastery over the material, refuses to acknowledge Shiva, the Supreme Spirit. Like a mortal being, believing that all that exists is a material, he refuses to allow Shiva, who exists in each and every being, thinking that the universe is just the sanctum of Shakti. Shiva has to remove this false knowledge. Hence the symbolic removal of Ganesha's head, the seat of that ego. But this doesn't mean Ganapati becomes dissociated from Shakti. Far from that. He is still a source of Shakti. He has now become the potent force that has realized that it is Shiva who abides in the heart of every creation, and he knows how to navigate this creation and move towards liberation. Ganesha has two tusks, one that is broken, symbolizing that the true nature of reality is realized when one breaks the duality between the self and the Supreme Absolute. Even his Vahana, the mouse, has a symbolism. Most iconographies depict Ganesha sitting on a mouse, Moshika. In the Skanda Purana, when Ganesha had been fashioned and brought to life, Ma Parvati gives him a modaka, a sweet, to eat. Immediately, a rat comes out of the hole smelling the sweet and becomes immortal after eating that. Now, the immortal rat becomes a carrier for Ganesha. This, of course, has a very deep symbolism. Mush is the root word for stealing. The mouse, Moshika, belongs to a prasaha group of animals, according to the Charaka Samhita, animals that snatch their food. The mouse, by its keen sense of smell, finds and snatches its food. But it is this same smell, this vasana, that gets the mouse trapped as well. And you can see how this applies to us. This is the vasana, latent desires, accrued from previous karma, keeping one in a cycle of birth and death. Now the head of the elephant symbolizes the memory that helps one understand this and strive to conquer the cycle of birth and death and move towards moksha, liberation, the state of Sat Chit Ananda. Now the mouse becomes immortal once it eats the modaka made by Ma Parvati. Once the righteous desires of the self are fulfilled, and the conduct of the self is in accordance with Dharma, it moves towards moksha. And these symbolisms are not very secret. Adi Shankara calls this out in his Ganesha Pancharatnam. He extols Ganesha in the first verse as Mudhakarata Modakam Sada Vimukti Sadakam. He who holds the divine ecstasy in his hand as the Modaka, and he who guides and accomplishes the liberation of his devotees towards that joy. The Ganapati Upanishad declares, Tvam Mooladhara Stito Asi Nityam, Tvam Shakti Trayatmaka, Tvam Yogino Dhyayanti Nityam. It states, you abide in the Mooladhara, the root of existence, and you are the source of the three Shaktis. Icha, Kriya, and Jnana. Icha is the power of desire, Kriya is the power of action, and finally, Jnana is the power of knowledge. So, all of existence is a dance of delight of the Supreme Absolute, the Leela of Shiva. It is the divine sport, a Thiruvilayadal of this infinite consciousness as it decides to manifest itself across these infinite forms and planes of existence. This is the story of one such manifestation, Ganesha. As always, the known is a drop and the unknown an ocean. Peace.